Hi, this is Andy from Orbit Media, and this video is going to show you the step-by-step process for setting up Google Analytics. So many companies we work with and people I meet don't have it set up properly or haven't finished setting it up. So this video should help you with a step-by-step process for how to set it up the way we do it, and we do it for hundreds of websites and companies and clients. So just for fun, I'm going to count the number of clicks that it takes to completely set it up, but I'm not going to count the keystrokes. There's a little bit of typing involved, but that would be crazy to just count every keystroke. But that should help make the point that this is totally possible, not that complicated, and let's jump right in. Actually, the first step is one of the more complicated steps, which is getting the code onto your website. So I'm going to show you that at a very high level. Then we're going to move into setting up goals and funnels. Then we're going to create filters to remove yourself from your data and traffic from your office. We're also going to exclude traffic from known robots and spiders. Next, we're going to create reports for site search. If you have a search feature on your website, we're going to use that as a listening tool and find out what people are searching for by setting up the site search reports. Then we're going to connect Google Analytics to Google Search Console, which is a companion tool and enables us to see some really valuable reports right inside GA or Google Analytics. Then I'll show you how to create campaign tracking code that goes on the links back to your website from any campaign that you're doing, such as an ad or an email. And then finally, I'm going to go through step by step adding annotations, which is an important way to help make sure that your data is telling stories and giving you the best insights. Ready? Here we go. So, to actually set up to create the account and to get the Analytics JavaScript tracking code on your website, you have to, of course, have a Google account. So let's assume that you've got that. And then you're going to go to Analytics, and you're going to click on the blue Start button, and you're going to begin to create an account. As you create an account, simply enter the account name, and we're going to be setting up a property, putting in the name of your website, typing in the website's URL, and you can also add an industry category. This is optional, but feel free to put in a category that's relevant to your business. And we need to tell Analytics where we are, as in what time zone. There's a bunch of other things that you can leave checked by default. And naturally, we need to agree to Google's terms of service. We're sharing data with another company. They've got two different places where you need to agree to their terms of service. A couple extra clicks here. Accept, accept. And now you are in the property. You have created the property. Inside the property, there is the place where you grab the JavaScript tracking code. This is the tag. This is the tag. So it's from here that we will be able to get this. Okay. Now we're going to put that tag into the website. You can do this in a couple of different ways. If you're using a WordPress or a content management system, there are plugins that will let you put it in. But I'm going to show you how to do it in the better way, which is using a tag manager. I'm going to use the Google Tag Manager. In Google Tag Manager, you can create a variable where you put in the tracking ID. The tracking ID can be kept as a variable because you're going to use it in more than one place. So making that a variable is a helpful way to become more efficient with analytics. Now we can make the tag. So instead of putting the tracking ID as the tag, we're going to put in the variable as the tag, which we had named Google Analytics, which this is an analytics, universal analytics tag. When does that tag get triggered? That tag gets triggered every time someone visits a page. Or for us, the way we set it up, we ask people to consent. Thanks to GDPR, we're going to ask for cookie consent so that we won't start tracking them unless they agree to be tracked. So we create a trigger for that tag that is the cookie consent. That sounded complicated. If there's an easier way to do it, or if you're working with a developer, try this. Just send an email saying, please add this tracking code through whatever mechanism you'd like, content management systems plugin, or manually adding it to the head code of every page, or setting up a tag manager such as Google Tag Manager and having that tag triggered when the visitor gives consent or when the visitor visits any page. Here's an example of an email that would go to your developer. Great. Now that we've got the code on our website and the JavaScript appears in every page that the visitor would visit, now the JavaScript can get triggered and talk to the cookies on that person's device. That's how analytics works. It's JavaScript tracking code that talks to cookies on that device, reports back to Google Analytics, collects all the data so that when we log into our account, we can see the reports and do analysis on what's working, what's not, what visitors are doing, what they're not doing. And one of the really important things that we want to track, one of the critical things, is the main point of our websites is to track conversions, track the goals, track when people take a profitable action, such as become a lead, become a subscriber, become a registrant, become a job applicant, become a donor, become whatever our goals are for conversion. When they change their status from X into Y, Analytics does not know by default when that happens. We have to tell it. It doesn't know because everyone's websites are built in different ways. So you have to tell it how your website works so that it knows what success looks like for you. We have to make a goal. Now, step-by-step process for creating goals. Goals are easiest to set up if you have a thank you page. You have a destination, and the visitor who makes it to that destination converted because they completed a form, they filled in their name, they put in their email address, they requested your help. So destination goals are by far the easiest types to set up. Here's how to create a destination goal in Google Analytics. We're already in the admin section, so that has accounts, which we created, properties, which fall under accounts, and views. One property can have multiple views. And Analytics already has a view set up for us here. I'm just going to click on Goals. And within Goals, I can click to set up a new goal by clicking this big red button. We're going to name the goal, and I'm going to call this Contact Form Submission, which is presumably a lead, but could be other things as well. And I'm going to choose as the type of goal, Destination. When I click Continue, it takes me to the goal details. Notice that there are lots of other types of goals you can set up, including pages per visit and time on site and events. But again, destination goals are the fastest, most efficient way to set up conversions. The goal destination is the URL of the thank you page. And in this case, /thank-you. This is for our site. Don't put in the full URL, including the www domain stuff. Just put in the relative URL, as this little note down here reminds you. And now I'm going to turn on goal value. I recommend setting a value for each goal, even if it's an arbitrary value of, say, $1. If you don't add a value, there's some data that will be missing from your reports. So you can get fancy and try to calculate the actual business impact value from every type of conversion, but it's easy enough just to put in a 1 in the beginning. Then we need to turn on the funnel, so we tell Analytics what the previous step was before they made it to the thank you page. In this case, it was the contact page. And the address of that page for this website is /contact, and that is a required step. In other words, you should not be able to get to the thank you page without having to go through the contact page first. We don't want to record anybody as a conversion unless they made it through this tiny funnel from the contact page to the thank you page. Hypothetically, you could have very long funnels, including many pages, and say a multi-step process, such as an e-commerce checkout. Once complete, you can click to verify the goal. If this shows a number, then it will indicate that there have been people who made it through that multi-step process, that little process, in the last 7 days. Now, since I just made this view and this account and property, there's not going to be any data in here. That's fine. I can check back later. If you are making a goal for an account and property and view that has been around for a little while, this verification process should work just fine. Last step, we click Save. There's the goal. Now that the goal is set up, you'll be able to get all kinds of fun reports, such as the conversion rate for visitors from different sources of traffic. And if you have multiple goals, you can see it for any of your goals. Visitors from which source of traffic were how likely to take which action. And you get the overall conversion rate for the website. What percentage of visitors took action? You can see the funnel visualization and what percentage of visitors dropped off without completing an action. And whatever you put in as the previous step appears right there exactly as you wrote it for the previous step when you created the goal. Great! You've got goals set up. To make sure Google Analytics is as accurate as possible, we need to create a filter. That filter will remove traffic from ourselves from our own reports. You're not your target audience, so you really don't want visits from yourself, from your office, from your computer, to be affecting your Google Analytics. You can remove yourself by creating a filter. It's very simple. Here's how it works. From the admin section, under View, click on Filters. There's a big red Add Filter button at the top. Click on that button and give the filter a name, such as the name of your office. Next, we're going to select the filter type, which in this case is Exclude, and traffic from what source? It's going to be traffic from our IP address. And the expression, we can make a filter that is just equal to our IP address. So what is the IP address of our office, or of the network through which we connect? I don't have mine memorized, most people don't, so I'm just going to go to Google and search for what is my IP, and Google will give you your IP address. Simply copy and paste this filter into this box, scroll down and click Save, and you will have filtered out the traffic from all the visits that connect to the web through that IP address. It's all done. Now, there's a few reasons why this might not work every time. One of them is that you don't have a static IP. A static IP is one that doesn't change over time. So often consumer level internet connections, maybe a home office, your router or modem might be grabbing a new IP address every time you connect to the web, in which case it changes and that IP address filter won't work. Or maybe if you're from a very large office and your network is part of a block of IP addresses and the final numbers of that IP address aren't the same for everybody, you'd have to create a slightly different filter in that case. The idea of filtering out traffic from yourselves is actually mostly important just to websites that get very little traffic. If you have relatively low traffic from yourselves might be affecting it a lot. But sites with tons of traffic and big sites, big companies, often you wouldn't even notice once you create the filter. But still, why not do it? Let's make our data as accurate as possible. This next one is an easy one. We're going to remove traffic from robots and spiders and non-human visitors. It's actually weird to me that Google doesn't make this the default setting. And I met someone from Google Analytics once and asked them why they include traffic from robots by default in Analytics. And they said, well, maybe there's some people who want to track that traffic or create a view that looks at them separately. I've never met anyone who wanted this data in their reports. Everyone, I think, should at least be aware that this is possible to exclude, and I'm going to show you how to exclude it now. Very simple. Here we go. From the admin section, it's a setting that we create for the view. So click on View Settings, and here are all the settings for the view. Scroll down, and there's a little box here that says Bot Filtering. Just check that box to exclude all the hits from known bots and spiders, and then click Save. That's it, you're done. Now all the traffic from known robots, which comes from a list managed by the Internet Advertising Bureau, has been excluded from your analytics and is no longer affecting your traffic. GA is forever more accurate. Next, we're going to set up the site search reports. If your website has a search tool, like a little search box that the visitors can type something in to find things, then you have an opportunity to use that as a listening tool to find out what people are looking for, what they're having trouble finding, what they want from your website. So to get that to work, you have to tell Analytics that you have a search tool and a little bit about how it works. Here's what you do. Site search is one of the view settings. So click on View Settings and scroll down to a little toggle at the bottom under Site Search Settings and turn that on to enable site search tracking. Next, it's going to ask us what our query parameter is. To find your query parameter, go to your website, go to the search tool, and simply search for something. Test. Now look up in the address bar, and you should see the key phrase that you just searched for. And before that, you probably see a little question mark or ampersand, and then a word or letter and an equal sign. In this case, it's an S. That right there is our query parameter. So come back to your box and put in the query parameter. And we're going to get one more option here. There's a checkbox that will let you strip out query parameters from the URL. Okay, this is totally optional. If you don't strip out the query parameters, it will treat every one of those search results pages as if it is a unique URL, which makes some types of analysis kind of interesting. You can get navigation summaries to see where people went after they searched for different key phrases. That's kind of a problem if you have a really popular search tool, because it's going to treat every one of those search results pages as another URL, and your reports could get really messy. So I'm going to say if you have a small site or a site without a super popular search tool, maybe don't strip out the query parameters. If you've got a big site with a big popular search tool, it's one of your main features of your website and a popular way to navigate, then I suggest actually checking that box to strip out the query parameters. Either way, all you have to do now is to click the blue Save button, and you're done. The site search report is in the behavior section, and it's really useful and interesting because when you look at the search terms report, you can see every phrase that people search for using your search tool. This is a super useful report. You're going to get ideas about things to write, or maybe there were gaps in your content, or maybe your navigation labels weren't very descriptive or helpful. So we definitely recommend setting up your site search reports. Google Search Console is a companion tool to Google Analytics, and it has some really useful reports for SEOs, for seeing how well your site is performing in search, what key phrases you're ranking for, what pages are ranking. So if we connect Analytics to Search Console, we'll be able to get some of these super useful reports inside Google Analytics, where the reports are a little bit easier to use. Here's how we do it. From within the admin section, we need to change one of the property settings. Accounts are on the left, properties in the middle, and the views are on the right. So click on the property settings, and then scroll down and click on a button that says Adjust Search Console. Now, you have to, of course, have a Google Search Console account, and that has to have validated itself to be associated with your website. And to make it a little bit easier, I sometimes log into that account in a separate tab first to make sure that I have all my permissions. Then click on the Adjust Search Console button, and then there's a little link that says Add. Click Add, and this is actually going to send you over to the first page in Search Console, which shows all of your accounts. We have quite a few here. And then scroll down to the one for that Analytics account, choose it, go to the bottom, and click Save. It warns me you're about to save a new association. There's really no risk of any problems creating this association. You're never going to lose any data. No matter what, all your data is already in Search Console, so don't be afraid that you're going to make a mistake here. Now when we go back to the previous tab, a little strange, and we refresh on that, it's going to show us that we have created the association, and it's going to let us choose whichever views, if we have more than one, that we want to use that Search Console association for. Then click Save. It's done. Now, this data from Google Search Console is not going to appear in Google Analytics immediately, I don't think, but eventually when it does start to share all that data, then you're going to get all of the reports under Acquisition Search Console, which include the landing pages report, every page that ranks in Google, and the queries report, every phrase that you rank for. These are some really useful reports. And just to remind people who haven't done this before, the landing pages report, when you click on a page and drill down to that page, this report actually shows you every phrase that that URL ranks for and its average ranking, or technically average position, over that date range for whatever you've chosen in Analytics. Very powerful, very useful. Simple setup as long as you have Search Console in place, so make sure you get that connection made. This next setup item isn't really a one-time set it and forget it thing in Google Analytics. It's more a behavior that we need to do every time to make sure that our data is accurate. It's about adding campaign tracking code. Campaign tracking code is just a bunch of stuff that appears at the end of a link, and Google can see that because it's in the address bar. And it lets them categorize that visitor as coming from a specific source, a specific campaign. A campaign is a certain effort that you take to drive people to a certain part of your website. It could be an ad, it could be an email campaign. I'm going to use as an example, just for fun, a little link that I have in the signature of all of my emails. What if I want to track all of those visitors to my website separately and be able to see how much is actually happening? How many visitors am I getting from that little link at the bottom of my email? Here's how we do it. Here's an email. I'm going to send an email to someone. At the bottom, I've got a link to a few things, including a link to my website. When they click on that, it says get the latest tips. They're going to go to the blog. And I've got some extra stuff on the end here that lets me attribute that visitor to my email signature as the source of traffic. They're really just going to the blog. So I'm going to start with that URL, the destination. Again, that could be the landing page after someone clicks on an ad, or the article that someone gets to after they click within a newsletter. I'm going to put that into a URL builder. I'm using the Raven Tools URL builder because it's nice and clean. There are tons of these online. Google makes their own, which I think is a little bit more difficult to use than some. We'll just use this one. It makes no difference. They all do the same thing. So first you put in the URL. Now, the source of this campaign is going to be Gmail. It's the specific origin of that visitor. The medium of this campaign is email. It's the broadest origin of that visitor. The campaign name, we are going to call it email sign, just something simple. And what that just did was created a new link that has this extra stuff at the end. UTM source equals, UTM medium equals, UTM campaign equals. Now, I'm going to simply copy and paste that into the signature. I'm in Gmail settings here, so change. You can see it's already here. And then I'm done. Save that. Now, within Google Analytics, in the acquisition section, we have campaign reports that properly attribute all the visitors from all of those marketing efforts. It might be social media videos or newsletters or cost per click ad or display ads. In this case, mine was called email sign. I'll get to it just by using a filter. Here they are. I can see that since I set that up in my email signature, I've gotten 128 total visitors. They spend an average of 4 minutes on the website, and I can attribute 4 email subscribers from that link. That's information that you would never otherwise have. Of course, your email service provider, from which you send campaigns and newsletters and things, can tell you open rates and click-through rates, but you'll never get the website behavior data, time on page, pages per visit, conversion rates, unless you use campaign tracking code. When people don't add these codes to each link that is in each of their campaigns, then those visitors may end up in lots of different places. They're not properly attributed, and that makes it much harder to measure results. I consider this to be one of the Google Analytics setup things that we have to do every time. And for our last step, there's something else we need to do that isn't a one-time setup thing. It's something we need to do every time, which is to add a note to say what we did. It's called an annotation, and it helps us collaborate with other people, because when other people look at the analytics, they might not know what happened at that time. By adding annotations, we help the data tell stories, which is kind of the whole point. So let's say you filtered out traffic from your own office, and traffic went down a little bit. And 6 months later, someone looks at your analytics and says, what happened? What did you do? We lost traffic. If they see the annotation that says that you filtered out traffic from your office, the data tells the story, and they're not going to call you freaking out and asking what went wrong. There are probably 5 good reasons to add annotations to Google Analytics. One would be anytime you sent an email and caused a spike in traffic. Another is whenever you started or stopped or even changed your advertising, such as a pay-per-click campaign, that can have dramatic impacts on your traffic. Maybe there was a press hit or some influencer showed us some love. What if we changed the website? That could obviously affect the kinds of traffic that we're attracting, or the conversion rates for sure. And finally, any change that we make to the setup of analytics can change what reporting happened. So we need to make sure that all that good work that we just did and all these previous steps is marked as an annotation inside Google Analytics. It's very simple. Here's how it works. So every report in analytics is basically the timeline and the data. Annotations go under the timeline. There's a little down arrow here that slides out this little drawer, and over on the right there's a link that says Create New Annotation. Click on that link and set the date to whatever the date was when you made the change. Now, I'm going to recommend that you start each annotation with a standard word or a few words that makes it easier for visitors to scroll through lots of annotations once you have a bunch of them. So we just made some changes to Google Analytics. I'm going to start this annotation with the two words Analytics change. What did we do? We set up goals, filters, and site search. We also connected Google Analytics to Google Search Console. And finally, we excluded traffic from bots. All done. The date is set. The change is noted with a tiny naming convention at the front. All we do now is click Save, and we added an annotation to that date. Now anytime anyone is looking at that timeline, they can see that little note at the bottom and click on it to see the annotation. That's it! You did it! You set up Google Analytics in just 52 clicks. Now your data will be forever more accurate. And you've got the skills to keep it more accurate. Just make sure to keep adding campaign tracking code to those links and creating annotations. Now you can let the analysis begin. That's the whole point. This was fun. I hope you found it useful. If you know someone else who's having trouble with analytics or getting accurate reports, feel free to pass this along. And if you liked this, we publish more at orbitmedia.com. So drop by and sign up for the bi-weekly newsletter, and we'll keep making these videos and articles. Thanks, everybody. Bye-bye.